All right, if you're watching me now, that means you may have just watched my other video that hopefully came out about how to take the track, sunroof track out of an F-150, 250, 350 and up, and also Expedition. There's a few differences on an Expedition. I'll get into that on the reinstall, or maybe in my final wrap up, but the track is the same. A few extra things on an Expedition, but we're not going to talk about that. This video is how to swap over the necessary parts that have to be reused on the new track. The trickiest thing for me by myself here is going to be the shade. Not really sure how I'm going to do that, but the rest of it should be all right. So what we're going to do, we're going to swap up our, in my wrap up of the removal video, I told you, you see the trough right there, laying right there, the black thing, that pops out, that goes right here. It just pops out with a screwdriver, no big deal. Those arms are flimsy. Do not break them. Those pieces are expensive. You need it. You really need it. If that thing's not in place, it'll pour water in the middle of your glass. We got to transfer over the deflector, the shade, and the motors. So I'm going to start with the motors. Actually, I'm going to start with the shade. That's the worst part for me to film. And then we'll do the motors. Okay, so I flipped it. This is the back side and it's up now. All right, one thing I didn't mention when I was telling you the tools you need, if you have a 15-16, and I cannot remember where the cutoff is for this particular feature, but this little wire that all it does is stick into this crossbar here and keep it from popping loose is held on with a Torx number 15. If you have this, you will need a Torx number 15 only to remove it, because the new one has riveted on here a piece of rubber that plugs up in there and holds this and does this job. So this is only for removal. You'll need to take a Torx 15, which I'm going to do right here. Remove that. All right, and then you just pop this out of there and then you're done with it. All right, the next thing you're going to do, now if you have a newer one like a 17 or 18, it may have the rubber thing already and you can just disregard that part. This crossbar goes on like this, and it snaps right there. To undo it, get you a screwdriver, good size one, put it right in there. Be careful that you don't jab this. Pop, pop, firm, and then watch. I'm just going to pull it, and it's off. All right, you can go ahead and chunk this because the new track comes with those. Why in the world? It's not like you damaged that getting it off on it, but the new track has one on it. So I'll just use the new one, even though there's nothing wrong with that one. If you are rebuilding your track, then keep it and don't step on it or anything. All right, so here comes the tricky part. I don't know how I'm going to film this. This goes in here like it goes like this, and it snaps right here. In order to release it, what I use is a big screwdriver, and I stick it in there, and please don't let it jump out and jab that. Be careful. You do that, and then you do that, and what you're doing at the same time, you're doing that with one hand and you're pushing a little pressure right here, and when it releases you'll feel it give a little bit and it won't snap back there. Then you can let it go and do the other side. So what I am going to do, I need both hands and I'm sitting here filming with my left hand. I am going to attempt to hold this foam somehow and do it, but I don't know if I'm going to be successful. But anyway, if I'm not, this is what you'll see. But I will be pulling on this lightly. You don't want to crush it, and then you're going to do this. You see that release right there? You want it to release all, so you can start here, release it, and you're holding a little pressure on there and it won't pop back in there, right? Then you get to this piece, because you notice it's got a split right there, so you got to do this piece separately, and then you do that piece and it'll come loose. So I'm going to just tuck this under my chin and see if this works. If it doesn't, I just told you how to do it. Okay, so that totally didn't work, but I got it loose. Okay, so now you see that it's loose. You just compare it. I'm gonna have to clip that part out. You compare it. So I twisted them and I moved this, so you can see this moves now, right? Right. All right. Now here's how we get it out. We have to turn it. We have to pull it down a little bit to get it away from here. You're gonna see how this thing's about that thick, and then it goes under here and it goes up here. All right. Well, this is under pressure. You don't want to let it go because it'll go whoop, 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 and then you don't have any pressure anymore. So what we're going to use, a new shade comes in the box with this put into this hole. And if you rotate this enough, right about there, it'll go all the way through and it won't let this roll anymore. That's what I'm going to do. So I don't know if I'll be able to show you that or not either. Go.
Okay.
You going?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to pull this loose, roll it up through here, and it's under pressure. It's under pressure. All right. So now if I let this go, it's going to be bad news. So this hole right here, you take your paper clip or whatever, and there you go. Now, and then all you have to do is rotate that up, out. So that worked out pretty good. One of the service advisors came by and filmed that little bit. All right. So the shade has just a pin sort of an end, just a roller, and it goes in there, right? And it goes in there, and then this rectangular piece goes there and then forward. All right, so no biggie. Put the shade over to the side, and you've got that thing in there, and that way it won't come unwound, which would be really bad news. You could theoretically wind one back up, but oh man, that'd be a royal one there. Okay, so we've got that off, and I hope I filmed enough of it. If one day maybe I have some help and I can really get in depth, I'll show you. But when you have the shade back here, let me get a visual here. It comes under here, right? And you have this part, this little piece right here. See that? That little strip? All right. That strip goes under this tab, and then it goes down through there. So the whole thing goes under here. It goes under that tab, this little tab, and this little tab, and the one just like it over here. That's what holds your shade tight from side to side. That's it. And then it goes down in this little track. So it goes under here, and then you flip the bar over and it snaps onto this. And so when this goes this way, it pulls it, and that little strip slides back and forth through this tab the whole time it's working. So you need help. I can do it by myself, but it's chintzy. Way easier with help. When you go put that thing in there, you get this one lined up, but remember it's under spring pressure at that point, so you got to have somebody hold it here, and you go over here and kind of make this one over there, and once you get it through there, you can see if it's lining up or not. You can see if it's not folded or anything. If it isn't, then you're good to go. Motors, 3 Torx number 25s, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, these motors are the same. They're the same motor, but one of them is already programmed to run your shade, and one of them is programmed or initialized, whatever you want to call it, to run the glass. Theoretically, you could reprogram them if you got them mixed up. I have found that I don't want to say they get set in their ways, but they kind of do. So I highly advise you don't do that. So what I'm doing is I've got it sitting up against the truck just like this. I'm going to put that motor over here, that motor over here, and when I have the new track sitting up there, I'm going to put them right back on just like that. If you're putting 2 new motors on there, doesn't matter. One other thing, a new track calls for new motors because they updated them. So if you have a 15, 16, 17, 18, more than likely the book is going to say, oh, by the way, you're supposed to replace the motors because they've been updated. Well, you can, but if your motors are still working fine, which about 99.9% of them are, there's no reason you can't reuse them, unless you just want the latest and greatest motors. I can't tell what's been updated, but they have been updated. And when you know, a warranty company says no, put everything brand new so we are covered, I put them in. But before they came out with those updated motors, we reused the old motors, and I still reuse the old motors, and I'm about to reuse these motors because this is a customer paying for this, and they don't really need. I don't recommend that they replace the motors unless one was bad, and I've literally only seen one bad that was actually bad ever. And I will say this: if you are going to replace the motors, you have to replace them both, because the new motors will not talk to the old. They won't talk to each other. They will not program together at all. So you got to have two of one. Well, you got to have two old or two new. Anyway, I'm going to yank them off. I don't think you need to see me taking out 3 screws like that. They take 3 screws out and set them on the side. All right, about 15 seconds later, there is what it looks like without the motors. Motor from the right there. Motor from the left, right there. All right, don't mix them up. Theoretically, again, you could, and it shouldn't matter, but it's easier. You may have to program it like 5-6 times to get them to accept the programming if you do it. So it's better off just to keep them where they were. I will flip it over and I'll show you how to do the deflector. So I alluded to this earlier. You got to drill out that rivet. You're not going to drill it out with this thing in the way. I mean, I guess you could, but you're certainly not going to reinstall it, because you got to be, this deflector needs to be popped up. So what do? Okay, now this lower track will now move freely because we don't have the motors hooked up, because the gears from the motors lock the cables, which will not let that move unless the motors are turning. But we can move it now, and we don't care if we break anything because this one's broken already. So we're going to push this, and we're going to push it some more. We're going to get it right there. And we're gonna just look at this, and we're gonna look at this. Push this some more. There we go. All right, now this is popped up now because it's more in the closer to being open position. We can get right to it. Let's do the other side. Now, sometimes now, if your track is broken bad enough, you may have to beat on these. They sometimes do not want to move, and but generally they will. All right, there we go, and there we go. So what we're going to do now is drill out this rivet. This is a 3/16 drill bit. You can try another size, but all I need to do, I don't need to drill out the whole rivet. I only need to decapitate it. So I'm going to spin it. Sometimes they will spin with you. They're aluminum, so they cut pretty easy. And I go a little sideways like that, and look at that. A headless rivet. And it'll pop right off of there now. So it will pop right over there. I might need a smaller screwdriver to do it, but it will pop right off of there. Okay, this piece popping right off. This piece has, see these 2 little ears? All right, the bottom piece goes beneath that right there, and the top 2 little arms there, they go on top. So it goes on like that. I think you can see that. It goes on like that. All right, that's important. You don't want it all the way up over top of it. That would be bad news, right? If it's all the way up on top like that, you want it like that. All right, and then your new one. All right, to get this off, you're gonna need a small screwdriver. These are just matter of fact, let me grab a small screwdriver. All right, these just clip into place. So you just work this in here, pop it loose. You work it in here, pop it loose, work in here, pop it loose. I'm going to show you what exactly it is you're popping in, popping loose. All right, you see this little tab right here, and you see the slot. You see what you're popping loose. You see that little knife edge goes down in the slot like that, right? It goes down right that. This top edge here pops under. Oh shoot, this top edge here, once the knife edge goes down in there, this top edge here goes under this tab and snaps under it, and that's what holds it in. That's literally all that holds it in. So you pop it in, and you pop it out, and you just take a small screwdriver and fold it forward, and it'll pop right out. You basically are popping it right out from under that tab. And there's also a little special something with the older ones versus the new tracks, and I'm gonna show you. I guess I'll just show you on this track, really. All right, so that's loose. I haven't drilled this rivet out, but that's okay. This middle piece, all right, you can see this edge is just one piece, right? All right, on the new track, right here, there's this tab that it pops under. There's also a tab from the bottom. All right, the new deflectors right here, on this bottom knife edge piece have a notch that matches that. Well, as you can see, this old deflector has no such notch. So when you try to put it on that new track, only the middle one is not going to snap down on there. Now I've tried to cut this tab off of the new track before. You can't really get anything up in there. I mean, I can cut a little bit of it off, but not too much of it. And I've also tried to cut a notch in this. You got to really watch that, because if you cut all the way through it, this thing needs to be one piece. So what I have mostly gotten to doing is I snap all the rest of them in place, and I'll just push this one down there as much as it'll go, but it won't snap, and I'll just let it rip, because the book doesn't account for that at all. And it's just something that they stick you with. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't go anywhere. So just be aware when you start snapping these down in here, this middle one's not going to snap if you have an older truck like this. Okay, so there is a stripped track. Nothing left on it. By the way, be careful with the deflector also. They also aren't cheap. So once you get one side loose, it's usually best to drill out both rivets at the same time and let it hang this way, because then it's hanging from the by the netting there, or whatever, the webbing for the deflector. That's not going to break. Then you can pop these loose and then put it to the side. Anyway, coming back to you with the new track. All right, new track in the house. Brand new, all the latest and greatest parts. It just needs to be dressed up and put to work. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do, before I put the motors in, because I need to manually move this track. Now you could do this another way, really, but the way I do it is this. It's just easier for me. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to recommend that you do the other way, but I'm going to tell you how I do it anyway. I'm not going to show you necessarily. I move the lower guide back this way and take the upper guides, or the arms, out of the way and put the deflector in. And then, because this track is in the shut position, and right about there is shut position, right? And that's the way it comes out of the box, right about there. Well, they used to have like a grease mark right there, and so you could just line it back up with that and you know you'd have it right. But they don't really have that too much anymore, unless you find an old one. So my question is, are they both exactly lined up? Are they a tooth off? Has this thing shifted in the box? I don't know. So what we do know is that if you take it all the way one way, all the way back, or all the way forward, both of sides as far as it'll go, then they're definitely lined up. So what I do is, just like you saw me do with moving this out of the way so I could get this deflector off, I'm going to push it backwards. Now sometimes these are a little stiffer than the new one, because they have not been activated before, and these cables are a little stiffer, but it's going. Look at that. On down. All right. Why am I doing this? All right, I want to put the deflector in, obviously. All right, here's the other deal. I don't know what size these rivets are that go in this hole right here. But I know I found these, and these are aluminum, and they're just a hair too big. So what I do, I take my same 3/16 that I drilled out the old one with, and I just put my finger under here. If you drill it from the back, the shavings usually come out here, and there's almost nothing here. But yeah, I mean, what I usually do is take a little piece of paper towel with some grease on it, put it right there, and just in case. And I drill this out. Drill this out right here. Am I showing it? Yep, there we go. I drill this out. I put it from the back. I drill this hole out, and now it fits this. The odd thing is, the deflector already fits it from the get-go, so it's slightly bigger. Anyway, it fits it, trust me. Can't do it with one hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill these out. Now, if I were you, and you're only ever going to do one, what I would do is leave this track probably where it is and not do this step right now. Go ahead and put your motors on. Go ahead and put your shade on. Put your trough on. Put the track in the truck. Get it operating. And then open it up. And from the top of the truck, put this deflector in. This is the way I used to do it. Put this deflector in from the top while the track's secure in the truck. That way you don't have to worry about manipulating these arms. But if you want to, I'm going to show you how I do it. So let me drill out these holes real quick. Here is the extra tab I was telling you about. You see you got the upper tab, but you got this lower tab. And as you can see, there's no notch in this plastic piece here to account for that lower piece. The newer ones have a notch in the shape of that lower tab right there. All right, I've tried clipping that out. Doesn't really work too well. You can't get to it well. And I've tried putting a notch in this one, and that sort of works, but you got to really be careful to not completely separate this thing. This thing has to remain intact across the back half if you're going to put a notch on this part, and it's really hard to do. So what I recommend is you just leave it. It's not going to go down in there all the way and clip like it's supposed to. And here's how they clip. All right, you stick that knife edge down in there, and you just push it in there and kind of get behind it like that. And I need to switch hands actually, but yeah, let me switch hands. All right, I'll switch hands. You get it in there and just snap. Look at that. Now it holds it, and then you just go snap, 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 snap. All right, to put these in place here, and I like to put one or two of these into place up here that holds it into place so you can mess with this. All right, the spring, remember, that's got to go up here. Make sure that this piece is up inside here. Make sure it's not sticking out, because what it'll do, it'll still work, but it'll make a snapping noise. Found that out the hard way. And you can fix it later pretty easy, but not. All right, remember the little tabs, the little upper arms, and that lower piece. Let me see, I'll make sure I'm on film here. Where are we? There we are. All right, lower piece goes under there. It goes up in there, and then look at that, lines right up. Put your rivet in, snap it down. Already got this side in. Put the rivet in, lock it down, do all your pieces. Again, it just goes right there. And well, of course I'm gonna make a fibber out of myself here. Let me pause. Geez, there we go. All right, snap, and then snap, and then snap. Usually you can just walk them right on there. And then this one starts to turn the corner. They're sometimes not quite as easy. And this one down here, sometimes you got to manipulate that one to get it in there, but it's still the same thing. All right, all the way across. And as you can see, this one's not in, and it's not going to be in, because I can guarantee you it's not going to go in there. You can push all you want to, and it's not going to go in there. And it doesn't matter, because all the rest of them I've done, I'm telling you, hundreds of these like this. And you know, if they're not going to provide you the means to do it, just put it on in there. It's not going to be a problem. All right, there you go. All right, I've got everything but those two and the rivets. Be back with that done. All right, I've flipped the track over. Deflector is in, rivets are in, everything's in, but it's still popped up. What are we going to do? All right, remember how I told you I'm going to put this in the farthest vented position or forward position you can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put right on the back of this top arm here, the upper arm. I'm going to push it down. See, it pushed the deflector down. All right, that's as far as it will go. Then you got to push the lower guide. All right, you don't want to push on this gray thing. It's soft. You want to push right here. And you got to be careful. It's going to be slick because there's grease in here. Get it to right about there. What I found, you should get it to right about there. And then you can kind of prop it on the track itself. And then push it all the way, look at that, all the way forward. All right, now that's as far forward. The motor will never run it that far except for when you're doing the programming procedure. It finds the absolute limit right there, and then it runs on a timer, and it'll never quite get that far again. That's how it knows that's as far as it can possibly go. All right, so I am going to put the other side up there, just like that. And I'm gonna do the same thing with this lower guide. And the reason I'm able to do this is because I haven't put the motors in them yet. Because these will not move freely like this at all with the motor, right? There you go. Now, that's as far forward as it'll go, and so is the other one. So you know they're lined up. So now you don't have to worry about if they're in time or not, or in sync. All right, so you are now done with that portion. Next up, and I believe I have flipped my phone. That's nice. And next up, it's going to be the shade. All right. Remember the Torx 15 that was right here that we renewed, and I told you there was a rubber piece? Well, here it is. And this accomplishes the same thing that that little wire piece did. It just locks that into place. So your truck, if it's newer, 17, 18, may have this already. If you've got a 15 or 16, you've got the little Torx 15, you got to remove it. On this new track, you got to do that. The same thing you're going to do here. You're going to pop this loose, pop, because you can't get the shade on with this on. All right, now we're going to get to a tricky part unless somebody walks by and helps me film. But what we're going to do is we're going to install the shade. Now, I've already been through this with you a little bit. I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to go ahead and put the shade in here. I'm going to show you sort of how it goes on. Don't believe I'm going to be able to film the whole thing, but hopefully it'll be enough to. All right, goes in there, right? There's a bunch of grease there. That's good. And what I do is I like to put my finger on the outside of that to squeeze the grease back through. All right, there it is. All right, greasy. All right, and here's the other side. And don't let this thing get unraveled. You got to spin it around a time or two. Let me change hands here. All right. Hopefully you have not let the shade get unraveled at all. If you do, spin it around a little bit. All right, that is a rectangle, goes right in there, and then it's locked. All right, so here, all right, when I pull on this, the little locking thing, if you'll notice, has fallen out because I wasn't paying attention. All right, not a big deal because I've got hold of it. If I let this go, it's going to go whoop, 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 because it's under pressure. See? Under pressure. You can cue up that bass beat if you want. All right, this is going to go. I'm going to have to show you, and then I'm just going to have to, I'm going to show you this, and I can't show you the actual installation, but this goes under there. Move that little thing out of the way. This goes under there, and see the little leather strip or whatever it is? It's got to go under that tab. Under that tab. And then the whole thing goes down into that crack. And this whole bar and everything goes under here and back around the outside of it. So I'm going to sort of show you the way it goes because I don't believe I can do the whole thing while I'm filming it. But there it is. All right, oops. Oh, there we go. And it's tight now. You're gonna have, it might take you a run through. All right, it goes in there, and it gets. All right, you see it trying to pull up over there. Take you a little pick or something and tuck that under there. All right, but it pulls through there. Now you see it pulling through there. Pulling through there. All right, it's in. And at this point, you would hook it right here, or you're going to have somebody hold that for you. And I'm going to go get the other side in over here. All right, but that is in. All right, I can't film me doing the other side, but you just saw me do that side. Now it's under some pressure. You're going to need to be pulling to the left or pulling back towards this side while you're working that side. So you'll see how it works, but here we go. Let me get the other side. So it's in, and I've got it under here. It's going to go right back that. You got to do them both at the same time like this. You see I've got it perpendicular to it, and it's going to flip up like this, flip up right there. And then you remember when this is exact opposite. Remember when we did this to unsnap them? Now you're going to see why you did that. Listen to this. Now it's hooked. Boom. Shades on. All right, you take your bar. This bar has to be on here. All right, and it goes on more or less just like that thing did. All right, you go up under there, and you got to kind of push it and turn it at the same time. And of course, it probably would help if I was filming the darn thing. There we go. You got to push it and turn it at the same time. Push it and turn it at the same time. And then once you get it almost into place, you can take this, catch that edge, and just go snap. Oop, and do not do what I almost just did there and get that thing. So anyway, we're gonna get it on there. Really helps to have an extra hand right there. I don't think you can go in there. All right, let me get another screwdriver. Got the little one in here. Now watch this. Oop. Got the little one again, and hopefully I'll hold on to it. And it snaps into place. All right, so you're gonna roll this around. Usually I use this big one, it's not a problem, but I usually have two hands. All right, see up there, it just snapped into place. See it? You didn't hear it, but I felt it kind of bump. All right, so then once that's in place, let me get the other one. Once it's in place, don't forget to put this little doodad back in here, and that keeps it from coming out. All right, you have now installed your shade. I would have liked to have done a better job with that, but that's the best I've done probably so far, especially by myself. All right, what do we have left? We got to put the two motors on. That's 6 Torx 25s, and we got to put that trough on, that middle trough, and that's it. That just snaps into place. Let me do the motors. I'd like to say one thing about these motors. All right, so I've got the one middle Torx 25 holding it on. These has these brass nutserts. Sometimes they're cross-threaded. Sometimes they don't want to come off, so you'll get like 2 off, and then this one will just spin the brass thing in there. Well, in that case, if you've got one, you just kind of keep turning it and like put pressure on it, and you can usually get it to come out, but you still got to go back in with it. So what you can do, if on the rare occasion that does happen, you can take a small pair of vice grips and clamp this thing back here. Am I showing it? Yeah, there we go. You can take a small pair of vice grips and clamp this thing and usually get it installed. It's only got to go in there once, so don't stress out if you have that problem. It's not a big deal. All right, let me put the rest of the screws in. All right, got the trough sitting in place. You want to take you something and pop it into place like that. All right, don't squeeze it back here. It will flex that thing and can possibly break it. It snaps into place. You can actually hold it from here and squeeze it with your thumbs if you have a strong grip. But don't squeeze it from the middle. The other thing you have to remember is it's got to go in that hole. The other thing you have to remember, let me snap that real. It's got to go on top of the spring. The spring is what holds it up against the glass. Got to be on top of that spring. It should automatically be there, but just make sure. All right, that is a dressed out track, ready to go back in the truck. Questions, comments? I'm going to make this a separate video, so this whole video isn't 2 hours long. But it's ridiculous how much video I've got already for what for me is about an hour and 15 to 30 minute job. Usually, definitely less than 2 hours if I'm not super motivated. You know, filming and talking takes up time. But anyway, there you go. Questions, comments. Thanks for watching. And if you got any comments about whatever I did, I can probably clarify. But it's in there. That's in there. That's in there. I wonder what it looks like from the other side. I never bothered looking. Let's see here. No, it doesn't really show you. Doesn't really show you. Anyway, it's in there. Questions, comments, let me know. Thank you.